Welcome to this video where I'm going to try to sum up my October, my most prolific month in books in ages. So hold on tight or something like that and we'll get straight to it. And then later in the video I'll try to explain what I'm doing with my life going forward. But anyway, the first book I bought was chess novel by Stefan Zweig. I think it's called something with chess in English. I read The World of Yesterday earlier and absolutely loved it. Probably one of my favorite reads this year, and definitely my favorite non-fiction read of this year so far. And that's why I bought this. This was actually the book I was planning on reading first. Ended up finding the other one at the thrift store, and then things happen, and I'm happy they did. And this is a very cool edition. I really like this, so that's why I bought it. Also, it was a sale where I also bought this one, Sally Rooney's Intermezzo. I read Normal People, then the book after that one, can't remember the name. Have still not read Conversations with Friends, and I think I will enjoy it. I like how she describes her characters, how they are normal, faulty, and idiots. So that is my hope for this one as well. Then I had a live stream where you could vote for which author I should read from the Nobel Prize winners. You chose Orhan Pamuk and this nonfiction about Istanbul, which I do really like the concept of having a live stream where you tell me what book to buy, and I'm happy I bought this. I do like the vibe of the cover, and reading about it, it seems like something that could interest me. Should also mention that I don't know much about Istanbul, so that would help. Then an easy buy, if that's the word. I bought the third book in the Thursday Murder Club. I have read the two first ones, and now it's 5 or something like that. But they're just very quick and easy reads and a lot of fun. Watched the movie to the first book of this last month as well, and that sort of fueled the fire in me buying this one. Then it's Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. I always recommended this sort of for books you might enjoy if you enjoy Murakami. I enjoy a lot of David Mitchell's works. Did not know that he wrote books. I first met him like metaphorically. I first saw him on TV doing Peep Show. If any one of you have seen that show, it's a disturbing sitcom, maybe I would say it is. That show doesn't give you the vibe that one of the main characters also writes books. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, I'm looking very much forward to reading this, and if it's correct that this is sort of on the same vibe as Murakami, then I'll be very happy. So I bought 5 books in total. That's not a good thing, and I'll get back to that later, but I did buy 5 books and it feels great. Actually, I'm not going to lie, it's I've missed buying books and looking for books to buy. Then we'll come to the books that I've read this month, and we'll start with what I'm characterizing as my current palate cleanser. It's Ben Aaronovitch and the Rivers of London series and Foxglove Summer. So this, I think it's the 5th book in the series out of 9 or 10, and this is probably one of my favorite of his. It's about this detective that hunts ghosts. People describe it as the Harry Potter for grown-ups. I feel that's the right description in many ways. But this time they're outside of London, they're on the countryside, and I think that helped me sort of accept this novel more. They've been in London and big cities, and it's sort of nice to see him in a different landscape. And his rivers are with him, and I think it's very witty. It's very British witty, and I laughed out loud several times. Also, you're wondering what is going to happen, so sort of it is for me very page-turny, and I will continue reading this series. Very happy this was as good as it was. I'm very happy this was the quality of literature I was expecting from this book. I was expecting to be entertained, and I was entertained. I think that is what I'm trying to say. Since October was a month where I made a video about Nobel Prize winners, I thought I'd try reading more of them so I can unhaul them. Still trying to get rid of books, we'll get back to that later. But I thought if I start reading Nobel Prize winners, then I could unhaul them. The problem is that since I've started reading Nobel Prize winners, sort of tempting to continue to collect them all like Pokemons. And well, I ended up finishing the next book, even though it wasn't as great as I thought it would be. And it's Dreamheart by Cecilia Samartin. I don't know if it's Dreamheart. Do you understand which book this is if you know her books? Cuban-American author, and I have relatives that are Cuban, so I thought it would be an interesting introduction to their books. This starts in the 50s and then ends up in the 80s somewhere, about two sisters that aren't really sisters, but they're related, they're cousins, and the one goes to the US and the other one stays in Cuba. And so it's sort of they exchange information across the borders, and we get to know how different things are and so on and so forth. I had huge problems getting into this. It was really slow and detailed, and everything is described. And after a while you understand why it's described the way it is, because the author wants you to really feel how it is living in Cuba and being Cuban and liking all the stuff that's good in Cuba. Sort of trying to set the scene, but it's just with too many words. Then later in the story it goes a lot quicker, so I would say the first half is really slow paced and then it picks up. But hadn't it been for me wanting to having read this book, I would have DNF'd it quite early. But I read it quickly, and that's, well, it is what it is. And ended up thinking it was quite okay. So the ending is a lot better than the beginning. Continuing my journey towards having read all the Nobel Prize authors, something that isn't going to happen, it's William Golding and Lord of the Flies. This is actually one of the books that I've most wanted to read from the Nobel Prize authors, because it seemed like a very plotty book and a disturbing one. And it sort of is. It's about a bunch of boys that strands on this deserted island, and it's all about the interaction between groups that are forming and their chances of survival. So it's a plane crash, and then these boys are left to their own, and you get to meet a bunch of stereotypes that are going to try to, well, they're going to try to collaborate, but it doesn't go all that well at all times. Just so I mentioned it, this video is supposed to be spoiler free, so that's what I'm intending. I did find this to be interesting to read, but I was hugely disappointed by the ending. Let's just put it that way. Also very disturbed at times. Right from the start I felt bad for several of the kids, and it was just hard to read. But I think it was hard to read because I was expecting it to be a lot more grotesque. I think this came out in 1954. Times were different. They wrote in a different way. I think if this had been written today, it would be by like an author writing more grotesque stuff. I ended up thinking it was okay. Was disappointed by the ending. I'm glad I have read it. It's both a plot-driven and a character-driven novel, and it's a classic. So now I know what the fuss is all about, at least. Then it's something completely different. It's Bullshit Jobs by David Graeber, a non-fiction book about jobs that we don't actually need. And I think many of us can think about the person they worked with that didn't actually have a lot of tasks, or you couldn't really understand what that person did. It's not like cleaning personnel or garbage collectors because they have really useful jobs. It's about the people that you can't really explain what they do. And it's a big picture book about the society as a whole. It talks about, I don't know if that has an expression in English, probably has, like getting money for doing nothing from the state so you can like try to survive your own way, like finding other things to work with, etc. It talks about important topics, and I really enjoyed it. It is thought-provoking, thinking about what will we do when we don't have enough jobs for people, and that seems like something that could happen unless we have huge wars and people die en masse. We'll see. I'm not the most positive in this regard, but I found the book to be really interesting, and a lot more interesting than I thought it would be. This was also a read that I picked up because I thought I should unhaul it, because it had been resting in my shelf for so long. So good things happen when I try to unhaul books. This is a book I thought I'd never unhaul. I got it from a friend and thus it's hard to get rid of. Also, I do like the aesthetics of it. It's Dune by Frank Herbert, but I have put it on hold for quite some time. But since I'm in the spirit of trying new stuff out, I have read it. This is a classic sci-fi novel about a royal family. Don't know if royal is the correct English word for it, but a royal family, worlds and resources that people are trying to get. It felt very political, a lot more political than I thought it would be. Also like classic political. It's very easy to get an understanding of why this or that is important to the different characters in the novel. Something I could really appreciate because I'm not that wandered in the sci-fi world. So I did actually find this quite enjoyable. Also a little bit time jumpy. I couldn't get a hold of when is when, which was a bit annoying. Also, like, how long has it been since that happened? And now we're here, and yeah, you know. But I'm very happy I read it. It was enjoyable, and now I've read a high sci-fi novel. I don't know if you've used the expression of high fantasy and high sci-fi. Do you say high sci-fi? Who knows? Not me. Then it's time for something a little bit different again. It's this one. It's The Hound of Baskerville by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This has been in my shelf for probably 4 years. It's the adventures of Sherlock Holmes and his friend Dr. Watson, or his companion. And it's a mystery. Someone has died and something isn't quite right. Probably many of you have read it or seen the movie adaptation or series or whatever. But this was my first Sherlock Holmes novel, and it went completely as expected. I enjoyed the journey, but I wasn't underwhelmed, overwhelmed, like surprised, or it was okay. It's a mystery novel, yeah, and you know exactly what you're going to get because I've seen the Sherlock Holmes adaptations earlier, so I knew what I was getting myself into, but I was curious to see if it was different or not. The only thing I was wondering about was, why is it set in the like mid 1880s or like mid to late 1880s when it came out in 1902? So it feels like, why has he written a book about stuff happening like 20 or 30 years earlier? I am not sure if he liked the aesthetics or not. Maybe that's the thing. Or he wrote them early and then just finished them late. Who knows? Then I read Yellowface by Rebecca Kuang. Maybe the most talked about book last year or the year before. Felt like it was all over. Also, it's a cover that you remember the cover of this one because it's quite screamy. It's about two authors where one dies and the other one steals her manuscripts, then publishes her works and gets famous. But then things start to unravel. It was a huge surprise to me. I thought it would be quite like down to earth and more calm. This ended up being quite a thriller. I got my pulse up at times. I was a bit stressed on someone's behalf, and I enjoyed it so much. And this all happens at the same time as the author pushes her heel on the publishers and the whole literary world. It feels like there's a lot of things written about publishers and how they choose authors, how they decide what books to hand out, how like the personal stuff of the people working for publishers affect authors and their works, and also like sensitivity readers and not wanting to offend people, doing stuff so they will sell more books instead of like selling books they really want to sell. All of that stuff that us as readers can imagine, but it's fascinating having an author writing a fictional novel about this stuff, because it doesn't really feel fictional. And I guess that is also a reason why I liked it. It sort of reminds me a little bit about Benjamin Labatut's When We Cease to Understand the World, in the sense of you don't really know what is real and what is not real, because you could very well see Rebecca Kuang in the characters in the novel, and you're sort of guessing that a lot of this has happened in some sort of way. That would make sense. But this is all conspi land, and it just enhanced my reading experience. So I'm also one of the fans of that novel, as everyone else. And talking about being a fanboy, I'm going to end this portion of the program with the book I liked the most in October, and that is Morningstar by Karl Ove Knausgård. So if you've followed this channel last month, you've already seen me talking about this book and trying to compare it to Murakami's 1Q84, because it reminded me of 1Q84 when I opened it the first time, and I was baffled. I don't know why I like Knausgård all that much, or I do know now why I like him, but I'm always surprised when I find myself talking very positively about one of his books. This is a multiple narrator story about a morning star appearing on the sky, and we get the perspectives of a lot of people, and we also get to see and explore their personal problems and issues. And it's sort of like, it's a book filled with people having issues that you and me both have, but it's just interesting to read about. And if you read a book where you feel like, oh, this is something that could happen to me, or, well, that isn't all that interesting, but this book writes it in the sense that, that is probably what I'm going through right now. And that is sometimes disturbing. Also, it's filled with his gorgeous prose, which I don't need at times, but probably I need it a little bit. It certainly helps. This isn't really fast-paced, and it is quite a big book. I don't know if it's allowed to say that I'm a bit annoyed with myself loving this book as much as I do, but I do. And now I'm afraid to read the sequel. And I think the 5th or 6th book in this series is being published at this time, which stresses me out, because I would like to be like up to speed in this series. But anyway, do read this book if you do read this book. I loved it, and this will end up on my top 10 of this year, and that bothers me a little bit, because I don't want to be a Knausgård fanboy, but I'm starting to become even more of one. We're now entering into a new segment in this video, and it's called Øystein Tries to Get Rid of Books. And he tries really hard. I counted the books yesterday evening. I found that I had 182 unread books, which is probably 50 books more than I thought. My goal is still to try to get rid of to have less than 100 books left to read in my shelves unread in New Year's Eve this year, which means that I have to either read 82 books or get rid of 82 books, but it's really, really, really difficult. But I've started the journey of trying to start books and then really quickly try to decide if I want to keep them or not. So that is what has happened, and that is what we're going to talk about now. The first one that leaves me is Helene Berr's diary, 1942 to 44, a Parisian Jew, and her diary, yeah, of course. When I started reading this, it felt a little bit too normal. I know that things are going to become awful after a while, and would be as bleak as the other diaries and memoirs from the Second World War I've read, but it was just a bit too boring in the beginning, and that's why it leaves me. It feels right that this book is not going to stay in my shelves, at the same time as I know that I could have found it interesting after a while. Then it's Iben, Akerlie, Lars and Lul. This is about a girl that loves a boy, and then there's this one person with Down syndrome, I think it is, that she's become like a guardian for. They're probably like 12 years old, and that is probably why I didn't like this. I enjoy children's novels often because it's full of adventure, you never know what is going to happen, and they can be a little bit crazy. This is more like if you're a 12-year-old girl or boy, you know that the feeling of falling in love with someone is normal. And even though I think it could be quite fun with like the plot of this, it was just... I opened the book, started reading it, and found it to be just annoying. Really, really annoying. So that's why I quit. Then it's something completely different. It's Thomas Mann and Death in Venice. I thought, well, Thomas Mann read Buddenbrooks, found that to be okay. This is very short, thought I could read it in a day and get like a shorter stack in my bookshelf. But this was just too wordy. I think that is the only way of explaining it. At one point I read it and like, I can't understand what you're trying to describe. Or what are all these words collected into this bubble of even more words? It was annoying, really, really annoying, and it's leaving me. Then it's My Dad Was Nearly at Woodstock by Ane Barmen. This isn't translated, I think, but it's about this woman that is trying to become a mother, and then her alcoholized father that has been absent. He has now put down his dog and is really sad. He calls her, and they are wondering if they should meet or something like that. First of all, the trope of we can't get a child, we are unable to become parents, we're struggling to get pregnant, is probably the most boring trope of all time. I am so fed up with that specific stuff that for that reason alone I nearly put down this book. But I put it down because one of the main characters was annoying, really, really annoying, and I just couldn't take it. There is an element of music in this novel, and I guess that is why I picked it up, but I was unable to stay in a bookish relationship with one of the main characters, and that is why it leaves me. So this means, because I've counted the books after I did this video, or I know how many books I've talked about in this video, I still have 182 unread books in my shelf. I guess I could try reading my smallest books and just read one a day for like 60 days, but I still have to unhaul 20 of them. Or I just have to be really, really creative in some sense. Haven't really figured it out. If I do not reach my 100 books goal, I should try to get as close as possible, and it feels great having less unread books in my shelf, I'm not going to lie. At the same time that I'm looking forward to buying more books next year. Sort of goes up and down this, because I've had like a non-buying year earlier, and then yeah, I do see the positives in having more books that you really want to read instead of having a lot of books that you're unsure about. I guess that is what I'm trying to say. So this is the state of things here. Now I'm really looking forward to putting the new books into my shelves, because I always wait until I do a video like this to put them in my shelves. And now I'm going to place them all where they belong and get rid of the books that don't belong anymore. Thank you all for staying with me on this probably longer video. I hope you have had a terrific month, and leave your favorite read of October in the comments. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!